let's kick off another deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really important for, well, any business, really. Big or small, it doesn't matter. It's effective value chain management.
It's a big one.
It is. And we've got a great chapter from understanding the dynamics of the value chain to help us unpack it all.
Perfect.
So we'll be looking at what makes these value chains really thrive, not just within a company, but across, a whole network of partners.
Yeah, the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. So whether you're, I don't know, maybe prepping for a huge meeting or just catching up on the latest thinking, or honestly, just plain curious, this deep dive is going to give you some seriously useful insights.
For sure.
Think of it like uncovering the secret sauce of how businesses really hum, from like raw materials all the way to a happy customer holding that finished product.
And it may surprise you to know it's not just about getting those individual processes perfectly optimized.
Right.
It's about understanding the whole picture, seeing a value chain as this dynamic ecosystem, not just a static chart.
Ooh, I like that, a dynamic ecosystem. So what makes this ecosystem tick? What are those key elements we need to understand?
Well, first off, you got to realize there are two main levels. You've got the enterprise value chain, and then you've got the extended value chain. The book uses a really clear example, automobile manufacturing.
Okay, perfect. Everyone can picture that. So how do these two levels play out in the car world?
So picture a car company. Let's say they're known for these sleek electric vehicles.
Okay.
Everything that happens inside that company, from designing the cars to marketing them, that's all part of their enterprise value chain. It's what they directly control.
Okay, that makes sense. But obviously there's way more to making a car than what happens under one roof, right?
Exactly. And that's where the extended value chain comes in. Think about all the partners outside the company. The companies mining the lithium for the batteries, the ones making the tires, headlights, the logistics companies moving parts around, even the dealerships selling the cars.
Wow.
It's this whole web of activities stretching way beyond just the car company itself.
So it truly is an ecosystem then. Just like in nature, each player, each company is dependent on the others. And how healthy that whole system is depends on how well they all work together.
Exactly. And the book actually mentions a group called the Value Chain Group.
Okay.
They've developed this two-step process to make sure all those moving pieces are actually working together towards the same goal.
Uh-huh.
So first, they map out the entire value stream so everyone can see all those connections.
Right.
And then they work on meticulously aligning every single operation within that stream.
So it's like having a shared map and making sure everyone's compass is pointing in the same direction.
Yeah, you could say that.
But even with the best plans, I think we all know things can go sideways if the people involved aren't on board.
Absolutely. And that brings us to what the book calls the human side of business. You can have the most brilliant strategy, the coolest technology, but if the people actually driving the value chain aren't motivated, skilled, and crucially aligned in their beliefs, well, it's just not going to work.
This is where it gets really interesting for me, because I think we've all worked in places where the culture was either fantastic or totally toxic, and you could feel the impact of that immediately.
100%. And the book actually lays this out visually with something called the Sabin and Mawhinney human collaboration model. Think of it like a pyramid.
Okay.
At the top, you've got leadership setting the overall strategy and culture. They're setting the stage, so to speak.
Okay, so leadership lays the groundwork. But what about the people actually doing the work? How do they fit into this pyramid?
Well, the model says that while leadership sets the stage, it's the individual knowledge, skills, and beliefs of everyone else in the organization that really make that collaboration happen. Those individual contributions are what drive the value chain forward.
Makes total sense. You could have the best leader in the world, but if the team isn't equipped or motivated, it's not going to work. It's like having a conductor with a world-class orchestra, but the musicians haven't practiced. The music's going to be terrible.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights how important it is to invest in people, their skills, and creating a work environment where collaboration is actually valued.
And the book even talks about this story of the CEO of General Motors back in 2012, who was trying to change the company's whole culture.
Yeah.
But he was really struggling to overcome the inertia. I bet a lot of people listening can relate to that, trying to turn a massive ship around.
Oh, absolutely. And it brings us to a crucial point. Many companies treat culture as this fluffy, optional thing, But the book points to Japanese firms as a stark contrast.
Okay.
They see culture as a core asset, something that needs to be actively cultivated and managed. In fact, they believe that a strong culture can be just as valuable as any tangible asset on their balance sheet.
So it's not just about having ping pong tables and free snacks in the break room.
Nope, not at all. It's about having these deeply ingrained values and ways of working that show up in every decision and interaction.
That makes me wonder, is there a link between leadership style and the kind of culture that develops? Like, does the way a leader acts actually trickle down and affect how people collaborate?
There's definitely a connection. Think about it. A leadership style that's all about command and control, tons of rigid rules, and a my way or the highway mentality, it's going to create a culture where people are afraid to speak up, share ideas, or take risks.
Yeah, they're too scared of making a mistake or stepping out of line. It's like stifling creativity before it can even happen.
Exactly. But a more democratic style, one based on trust, where open communication is encouraged and people feel safe to, challenge things, well, that's where the magic happens.
So a democratic leadership style is more likely to lead to collaboration and innovation,
Exactly. Because when people feel genuinely trusted and empowered, they're way more likely to share their ideas, take risks, and go that extra mile.
which then leads to a more agile and responsive value chain.
Exactly.
This makes me think about the role of trust, not just within a company, but also with those external partners in the extended value chain. Because if you don't trust the people you're working with, collaborating is going to be tough.
You're absolutely right. And building trust takes time and consistent effort, especially when you're dealing with partners outside your company. And there are actually different levels of trust at play here.
Oh, interesting. So you could have high trust within a team, but low trust between companies.
Precisely. It's like a spectrum. Not every relationship needs the same level of trust. The book actually uses this fascinating example from the auto industry to show this. Remember NUMMI, the joint venture between General Motors and Toyota back in the 80s.
Vaguely. Remind me.
Well, GM was struggling and wanted to learn from Toyota's famous lean manufacturing practices. They set up this joint venture, but it turned out that despite their best intentions, clashing cultures and a lack of trust really hampered the process.
So even though they both wanted to make great cars, their ingrained beliefs and ways of working got in the way.
Exactly. It's a classic example of how, even with a shared goal, misaligned cultures and a lack of trust can make change really, really difficult. And it emphasizes something the book talks about a lot. The importance of a leader's walking the talk when it comes to building trust. You can't just launch a trust program for a month and expect miracles.
It has to be embedded in everything the company does, from how they treat their employees to how they negotiate with suppliers.
You got it. It has to be authentic, consistent, and demonstrated through actions, not just words.
Which makes me wonder, how does this play out in the extended value chain, where you have all those external partners you can't directly control? How do you build trust and foster collaboration in that environment?
That's where things get really interesting, and it's something we'll explore in detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, a cliffhanger. All right, listeners, stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive deeper into the complexities of managing those all-important relationships in the extended value chain. Welcome back. We're digging even deeper now into effective value chain management, and I'm already feeling like I'm getting a masterclass in how businesses really work.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And last time, we left off on kind of a cliffhanger.
We did.
We were about to get into how trust and collaboration play out in that extended value chain, where you're dealing with partners that you don't have direct control over.
Right, because it's one thing to build a great culture within your own company.
Right.
But how do you extend that to your suppliers, your distributors, all those other players?
Yeah, that's the big question. And it's something the book tackles head on. It talks about this common dynamic in supply chains. They call it the bully, skeptic, wimp dynamic. Have you ever come across that in your work?
Ooh, that sounds juicy. I'm definitely getting some flashbacks to certain projects. But for our listeners who haven't had the pleasure of meeting this trio, break it down for us.
Okay, so you've got the bully. Typically, it's a dominant partner, tries to call all the shots, dictate terms. Maybe they're the biggest player in the market, or they just have a really aggressive way of doing business.
The my way or the highway type. I've definitely met a few of those.
Exactly. Then you've got the skeptic. Maybe they've been burned before by bad collaborations, or they're just generally distrustful of, working with others. They don't want to share information, always looking for the catch.
And then there's the wimp, the one who just goes along with whatever's asked of them,
Yeah.
even if it's not really in their best interest. Probably afraid to rock the boat.
Right, exactly. And navigating this whole dynamic can be tricky, but the book emphasizes that it starts with strategic partner selection. It's not just about finding the cheapest supplier or the most convenient distributor.
Right.
It's about finding partners who are aligned with your values, who share your commitment to quality, innovation, and who are genuinely open to collaborating.
So being picky about who you work with, not just jumping at the first opportunity that comes along.
Exactly. It's about choosing partners who will actually enhance your value chain, not just, add to the complexity. And that takes doing your research. The book actually suggests using a tool called the Supplier Item Importance Matrix to help with this.
Okay, a matrix. That sounds intriguingly complex. Tell me more.
It's actually quite simple, but it's a powerful visual tool. You plot your suppliers or other partners on a grid. It's based on two factors, the value they bring to your business and the risk associated with their involvement.
So a supplier who provides a critical component, like something essential for your product, but is also prone to delays, would be high value, high risk, right?
Exactly. And you'd want to manage that relationship carefully, invest time and effort in building trust and open communication to mitigate those risks.
Whereas a supplier who just provides like generic office supplies, low value, low risk, wouldn't need that same level of attention.
Precisely. And this matrix lets you see those different levels of importance so you can prioritize your efforts accordingly. It's about being strategic.
This makes me think back to those successful extended value chain cultures we talked about before, like the Japanese auto industry.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting the lowest price from suppliers. It's about those long-term collaborative partnerships where everyone benefits.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example. And trust is the glue that holds those relationships together. The book really stresses that building trust in the extended value chain, it takes time, consistency, and follow through.
Right.
You need to be clear about your expectations, communicate openly, and, show that you're trustworthy through your actions.
It's like any relationship. You have to put in the work to build that foundation.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a two-way street. Your partners need to trust you too.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. How do you actually cultivate that trust? Especially when you're dealing with those bullies and skeptics who might not be so keen on collaborating.
Well, it starts with what the book calls market trust. This means building a reputation for your company as one that's fair, ethical, and always operates with integrity.
So it's about building a brand that stands for something, not just chasing profits at any cost.
Exactly. Because when potential partners see that you have a track record of treating people fairly and upholding your commitments, they're much more likely to be open to working with you.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
It's like building good credit. People are more likely to lend you money if they know you'll pay it back.
Exactly. It's about establishing that credibility.
Okay, so we've talked about choosing the right partners, building trust. But at some point, you actually have to do the work, right?
Right.
And that's where processes and technology come in.
Absolutely. Those are the tools of the trade, the systems and platforms that help keep that value chain running smoothly.
And I know a lot of companies think that technology is the magic bullet, that if they just implement the latest software, all their problems will be solved.
But the book cautions that that's rarely the case. Technology is a powerful enabler, but it's not a cure-all. In fact, jumping into technology without the right foundation in place can actually do more harm than good.
Oh, I can definitely see that happening. Like spending a fortune on some fancy new system that nobody knows how to use or that doesn't actually address the real issues.
Exactly. It's like buying a state-of-the-art oven when you don't even know how to boil an egg. You need those basic skills in place first.
So what does the book recommend when it comes to choosing the right processes and technology for your value chain?
The key word is alignment. Your processes and your technology should support your overall strategy, your people's capabilities, and yes, the level of trust you've built.
Because if people don't understand the system or they don't trust the data it's producing, they're not going to use it effectively.
Exactly. And change management, getting people to adopt new ways of working, that can be even more challenging in the extended value chain because you might not have the authority to just mandate those changes.
So you can't just say do this or else with your external partners.
Exactly. It requires a more nuanced approach, one that relies more on incentives and persuasion rather than command and control.
Which again comes back to trust. If your partners see the value in collaborating and they believe that you're acting in their best interests, they're much more likely to embrace change.
Absolutely. It's about building those win-win partnerships where everyone feels like they're part of something bigger.
This has been incredibly insightful, and it really drives home the point that effective value chain management is so much more than just optimizing processes and implementing technology.
It's about understanding those deeper human dynamics, recognizing that people are at the heart of it all.
We can't forget about the human element. And in that spirit, in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some practical takeaways and actionable insights from the book. Stay tuned. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into effective value chain management. We've really gone deep on the dynamic nature of value chains, that crucial role of trust, and even how to manage those, what was it, the bullies, skeptics, and wimps.
Yeah, the whole cast of characters you might encounter in the extended value chain.
Exactly. So now it's time to, distill it all down,
Right.
Get to those key takeaways, those actionable insights that our listeners can actually use, whether they're, a CEO or just starting out.
Absolutely. Let's get practical.
So what are some of the big nuggets of wisdom that the book offers?
Well, the book really hammers home the point that effective value chain management, it all starts with leadership.
Okay, but we've all heard that before. What does that actually look like in practice, day to day?
Yeah, it's not just about giving orders or, setting these big, ambitious targets.
Right.
It's about setting a clear vision for where that value chain needs to go and crafting a strategy to get there. But even more importantly, it's about creating a culture that actually supports that vision. A culture where collaboration and innovation aren't just buzzwords, they're how people operate every single day.
So going back to that ecosystem analogy, leaders are responsible for creating the conditions where that whole system can thrive.
Exactly. Like they're the gardeners tending to the soil, making sure the plants have what they need, sunlight, water, protecting them from pests and diseases.
And what about those pests and diseases in the business world?
Right.
We talked about those tricky partner dynamics earlier. Any advice on how to deal with those?
Well, the book really emphasizes understanding that not all relationships in a value chain are created equal. You're going to have some partners who are just natural collaborators. They're eager to share information, work towards those shared goals.
The dream team.
Exactly. But you're also going to have those partners who are, well, more resistant. Maybe they're more focused on their own interests, or they're just difficult to work with.
Yeah, those are the ones that keep you up at night.
Right, exactly. And that's where the strategic thinking comes in. The book suggests being really deliberate about which relationships you choose to invest in. Remember that supplier item importance matrix we talked about?
Oh, yeah. That one that helps you figure out who's like the VIP and who's
Yeah.
less of a VIP.
Exactly. That tool can be so useful for figuring out which partnerships are really worth your time and energy and which ones, maybe need a more hands-off approach.
Makes total sense. You
Yeah.
don't want to waste your energy on a relationship that's, not going anywhere.
Exactly. It's about being smart with your resources.
Now, we've talked about leadership, culture, partner dynamics, but what about the nuts and bolts of making change actually happen? Any tips on how to actually improve those processes, implement new technology effectively?
Yeah, this is where it's interesting. The book makes this point about how in a lot of organizations, change is driven more by like sticks than carrots.
Okay.
It's all about incentives and penalties rather than, really getting people on board with the changes.
Oh, I can see how that would create a lot of pushback. It's like being told to eat your vegetables, but no one tells you why they're good for you.
Right, exactly. And that's why the book suggests a different approach, focusing on supplier development programs and customer-focused initiatives.
Okay, that sounds a lot more appealing than the stick approach.
Yeah.
But what do those actually look like in practice?
It's about going beyond just those transactional relationships and creating real partnerships. Think, training programs for your suppliers to help them improve their operations or involving key customers in your product development process so you get their feedback early on.
So it's more about collaboration and knowledge sharing rather than just like dictating terms.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone in the value chain has something to contribute and that by working together, you can achieve so much more.
This has been such a great deep dive. I feel so much more equipped to tackle those value chain challenges now. But before we wrap up, is there one final takeaway, one like golden nugget of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with?
There is. The book leaves us with this really thought-provoking statement. The next generation of strategic competition will be value chain to value chain.
Wow, that's powerful. What does that mean for businesses moving forward?
It means it's not enough to just focus on your own company's performance anymore. You have to think about how you can collaborate effectively across that entire value chain, from your suppliers all the way to your end customers, to create a real competitive advantage.
It's like that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And in today's world, going far together is the only way to truly succeed.
I love that. So to our listeners, take these insights, apply them to your own work, and start building those collaborative, trust-based value chains that will lead you to success.
And remember, effective value chain management, it's a journey, not a destination.
It is.
It takes continuous learning, adaptation, and that commitment to building win-win partnerships.
Absolutely. So on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those value chains humming.